When I first started watching 2B Hero X, I was like, what is this fucking claymation? This is Halloween. I thought I was watching Coraline 2. And my homie Jesus, shout out to him, was like, all right, man, just watch it a little bit further. I think you're gonna like it. And me personally, I was just giving him shit because I really like Coraline's one of my favorite movies. I love Coraline. I love Nightmare Before Christmas. So I was like, fuck it, I'll give it a watch. So even if the entire show was in that original style, I would still probably like it because I actually just, I don't know, it just reminds me of, all the old movies I used to watch, Corpse Bride and all that shit, right? I'm a fucking emo kid. What do you expect? And I think this anime is just incredible. I think it's one of the best animes I've ever seen personally. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be rating each individual aspect of the anime at a style of in numbers 1 through 10. If you guys have any disagreements, be sure to let me know in the comments. First thing that we're going to talk about is the story. Now, I rate stories based on how unique and interesting they are with its premise. So for me, a really good story would be Expedition 33. It has a really cool, unique premise that it hasn't really been done before. Now, I am not a stiffler, I would say, for anyone that, creates a story that is already kind of an existed trope, I would say, but I am going to judge the story on a couple other things in addition to that as well. So I'm going to give the story for 2B Hero X an 8 out of 10. And the reason being is because superheroes are kind of a dime a dozen. Superhero, whether it be in Marvel, whether it be with comics, whether it be just shows about heroes. And I know most animes is like just people with powers, right? But I guess heroes is a very common trope that gets kind of tiring. So if this was so the story is about heroes basically battling out in the top 10 and the best person can become the number one hero. On the surface, it's not super interesting, I would say, but what makes it really cool is what they added in addition to that, which is the popularity ranking. So basically how the heroes get their powers is kind of like almost like a democracy, because the heroes get stronger and they get their powers based on what other people believe them to be, which I think is a really cool added thing to the story in an otherwise kind of played out category. And I think that adds a lot of really unique things that you can discuss in the story, because it adds a lot of weight to the story as well. So what I mean by that is, even though characters don't die, they can pretty much just become irrelevant and lose all of their fame and then just pseudo die, because they lose their powers, they lose their strength. Even someone like Isol, that's a perfect example of this. Isol is one of the characters in the top 10 that they talk about, and there's an old Isol and a new Isol. And it shows what happens when people stop believing in you as someone that's a hero. You lose a lot of strength. And they keep talking about the repercussions of basically falling out of relevancy. And it's really cool. I think it's a really cool added narrative element to the story. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Next, we're going to talk about the dialogue. I think really bad dialogue stands out more than really good dialogue, unless you kind of are a nerd about that, which I am personally. I'm just obsessed with really good writing, and I watch tens of thousands of hours of people breaking down characters. So I kind of have a keen eye to seeing good dialogue and what makes characters good in certain situations. All that nerdy shit to say this, I think the dialogue is 8 out of 10. I think it's really good. What I think is, you see really bad dialogue pretty much affecting everything. I made a review on Arknight Enfield, and that was some of the worst dialogue I've ever seen in my entire life. And basically all they do is expository dialogue. They just tell you everything about the world and they don't let you figure anything out for yourself. They kind of cheapen what should be high impact moments. I don't think that 2B Hero X did any of that. I think what made me give this an 8 out of 10 is you basically have these characters that are only in the shows for a couple episodes at a time, because they focus on these characters basically just with a couple episodes. And I know a lot of the time the characters intertwine in between episodes, which I think is really cool. But for the most part, you only have a couple characters or a couple episodes to really bond with these people, to really see who they are, what they are, how they react to things, their motives, their goals. And to do that, I think you need to be very efficient with your writing and really efficient with your dialogue. And I think that the writers did a good job of that, because every character character felt somewhat likable. Every character felt like they had different motives, which I thought was really cool. And there wasn't a whole lot of expository. There are some really funny moments in the show too. And I think overall the dialogue, whenever it's not really bad, it's harder to judge. So it's really hard for me personally to give anything a 10 out of 10 in terms of dialogue, unless it's really emotionally impactful for me. So something that had really good dialogue, in my opinion, would be Vinland Saga. Vinland Saga has some of the best dialogue. Frieren has some of the best dialogue. Your Lie in April, because that just is more impactful to me because they talk about things that are, I guess, just like more philosophical, I would say. So the thing about this show in particular is it doesn't really hit me hard in any real way, but I think the dialogue is not bad. But so I can't give it a low score, but for me, it just doesn't really do anything for me. I still think it's good. I think it's efficient writing. It just doesn't really impact me in a way that, other animes closer to my top 5 would, like Castlevania, Code Geass, shows like that. Next, we're going to talk about animation. Guys, this has to be a 10 out of 10. I mean, I have never seen anything even close to as good as this in all my brief time watching anime, right? I probably only seen maybe 40 animes in my life, but this by far takes the cake. I mean, just in the beginning, even if it was just staying the way it did in the beginning with the Coraline 2 animation, with the Nightmare Before Christmas Corpse Bride animation, I still liked it. But it took a whole nother step forward when they changed it into the regular animation style that we're used to. Guys, the Queen versus Boa fight was one of the best fights in anime history. I will go as far as to say that was fucking incredible. That was legitimately like watching the Mona Lisa being painted. I mean, it was just so cool, and it came out of fucking nowhere too. When Queen just starts beating the fuck out of Boa, and they're just destroying the entire city, and there's lights and colors and flashy shit going on. I mean, guys, it is amazing. And I've seen a lot of some really good animation would be Solo Leveling. Solo Leveling obviously is a power fantasy trope, so the animation has to be good. I think this is better than that. I think this is by far the best animation that I have ever seen in any anime ever. So 10 out of 10 for the animation. And then, oh my God, I forgot to even mention when X, in the very last couple episodes, when X is just popping in and out of dimensions and he has this fucking spectacle of what he can do. It is just so cool, and it's almost like you're seeing it from his point of view, or like in certain times, and then you see it from someone else's point of view other times, and it's just crazy to see him, just how unique the animation was when he's just doing a link between time type animation where he's just like flat against the wall walking around because he's in like a different dimension, and then he pops out, he gets a fucking quarter from another place, and then puts it in a jukebox. I mean, it is just, I can't even explain it. It's just fucking crazy. It's cool. A lot of vibrant colors. It is just incredible. I really think I don't think any other anime could ever get a 10 out of 10, except for maybe a few. This is one of them. I mean, if they can get higher than 10, I would give it extra credit just because it's that good. So next we're going to talk about its characters, and I think this is actually, surprisingly, now that I think about it, one of the weakest proponents of To Be Hero X. And the reason I say that is because we only did get a couple episodes with each of the heroes, and while we did get to see a good amount of their personalities and who they are and what they're for, me personally, I only really liked a couple of the characters. I liked X. I thought he was fucking Gojo, basically. He's just aura farming. I think Queen is pretty cool. Ghostblade is probably my favorite of all of them. And then I really like the dog, Ahu. And I guess little Johnny's okay, but he's a little too feminine for me. I don't know. I'm not really a huge fan. Everyone else is kind of like, Ling Ling, nice, Isol. They're okay. But no, I don't really like any character a lot other than Ghostblade. He's the only character I actually really like in the entire show. And for me, I think that's a problem because I think of characters that I really love, right? Eren from Attack on Titan. I like Law from One Piece. Lelouch v Britannia from Code Geass. I think of a lot of like the most prominent characters in animes, and I just seem to like all of them more than I like any character individually in this show. Now, while I think this show does have a decent cast of characters and it does show a lot of different ranges of powers and motivations, I think that's important, obviously, especially because all of them are vying to be one, I guess the number one. So I guess their motives do matter for that regard. I don't really like any of them a whole lot. Now that could change, once we get a little bit more depth on these characters. But for now, because of the way that they did the story, I think that we didn't get enough of these characters to really make me like them more than any other character that I like in other animes. Like I said, even Isaac from Castlevania. I love Isaac. Sokka from Avatar. I know a lot of people don't think Avatar is an anime. I personally do, but he's a really cool character. There's just too many cool characters in other animes, and I think that comparing this to any one of those characters, there's no character to me personally in this show that really stacks up against any of those other ones that I named. So for that reason, I had to put the characters at 7, because while they are a cool blend and there's a lot of cool diversity, I don't like any one character a lot. I just like all of the characters a decent amount, which is good, right? I mean, not every story has to be some fucking masterpiece with this emotional depth and this character depth. Me personally, that's just what I'm looking for when I watch anime, because I really like to see, I like to watch animes that have, character progression and depravity and characters overcoming struggles. And while there is that in here, I just don't like these characters enough to really care about them and their motivations. That's all. So I would say, what did I say? 7 out of 10? Yeah, 7 out of 10. So music, I think, is pretty important. I think having a really good opening theme song or a really a good ending closing song is important. And I think it makes the story much more iconic. So some examples is Attack on Titan had some of the coolest openings ever, especially the fucking rock ones towards the end. I mean, it was just fucking sick, dude. Your Lie in April had fantastic music. There's Fighting Dreamers from Naruto. I mean, come on, everyone remembers Fighting Dreamers. There's a lot of really good opening theme songs. This is not one of them. In the short amount of time that we have seen this, I didn't like the opening. I didn't like the ending theme song, and the fighting music in between all of that, I think was relatively good, because it was just exciting and high pacing, and it did its job. So for me, I'm gonna give the music a 5 out of 10, because I really did not really like the opening theme song or the closing song, and for me that's pretty important, because I mean, you're watching a 22-minute episode on Crunchyroll, and 4 of those minutes are the opening song and then the closing song. So it's like, I mean, that kind of does make up a decent amount of the show. And for me, it gets me excited to watch the next episode. If I am watching Crunchyroll and it says next episode and has a really catchy closing theme song like Orb on Netflix, and Orb has really good opening song and closing song, and it makes me want to listen to it. And by next thing I know, it fucking autoplays the next episode, and then it's playing the theme song, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going through this, because I just really like I like it. Because if I like the opening theme song, I like the story of a show, and I like the closing theme song, I'm always trying to watch more of it, and it just make me watch the anime faster and binge it. And for me, if I know an anime is good and I love an anime, if I can binge it, and that's obviously a huge part of it. So I think that the music could be a lot better. Obviously, this was an experimental project, but despite it being experimental, they had just the most insane animation ever. So I just don't know if they just put all of their effort into the animation and not just the music. But I think I'm hoping that the next season has better music, because I didn't really like the music in this one. So 5 out of 10. And then the regular kind of techno beats for the fights that they were doing and kind of hyping it up, I think that was like an 8 out of 10. But I guess I would just blend it out on average to a 5 out of 10. And we're not going to talk about voice acting, because while I do think voice acting is very important, a lot of the time you don't notice really good you don't really notice average voice acting. So for shows that have really good voice acting, it just makes the show great. But and for shows that have really bad voice acting, it's really hard to watch. Like Black Clover, I tried to watch that, and Asta's just yelling constantly. I couldn't do it. I mean, it literally just ruined the entire show for me. But really good voice acting, like in Fire Force has awesome fucking voice acting. Same with Attack on Titan and a couple other shows. But I think that for the most part, you can't really judge it, because decent voice acting, you just never really notice. So it's hard for me to really score that, I would say. So overall, what we're going to be giving this anime, I had to get the calculator real quick, a 38 out of 50, which to me actually surprises me because I think To Be Hero X is actually in my top 10 favorite animes of all time. I think it's just really fucking fun to watch and really cool. And I'm actually surprised I gave it a little bit of a lower score than I would have wanted. But I guess breaking down them on each of the categories makes it a lot harder to just have rose colored glasses when it comes to each individual part. Because overall, I think the anime, if someone asked me, you know, rate it from a scale of 1 to 10, I wouldn't rate it like a 7.8, which I think is basically what this is. I would rate it like a 9 out of 10. I think it is something that you can recommend to anyone and they will like it just because just the action is so fucking cool that if they like the action, and you know, they don't even watch the story, but if they watch the story, it's good enough, and then the action is so fucking good, the animation is so good that just carries everything else. So if you like the story, then the animation is going to be fucking amazing. If you like the animation, then you can just ignore the story and then still be happy. So I think this is a really cool watch, a really fun watch. 38 out of 50 is not a bad score. It's a lot higher than a lot of these other ones that I'm going to be reviewing soon. But I think this is a really fun way of kind of breaking it down, I would say. Let me know if you guys like this style right here. And if you disagree with this overall score, let me know yours too, because I really think this is a fun watch. And I'm surprised I gave it this low of a score. Let me know what you guys would give it in the comments below. And subscribe to the channel too. I'm pretty, I think I only have like 205 subscribers, something like that. So yeah, just give me a sub and like the video, and helps with the algorithm. Appreciate you.